Okay, so now we're going to start having some challenges. And what I'm going to have to do is count on my fingers. And I can't do this without counting on my fingers. I need to put a picture on the website about counting on your fingers. And we're going to take this monthly sheet and first do something really, really simple, move it to an annual sheet. And then we're going to put our debt in. And basically, we'll have kind of a real model. We'll compute our project IRR, our equity IRR. We'll do it the wrong way. Like I said in the last video, we're going to do it the wrong way. And the wrong way involves assuming the interest occurs every month or is paid every month and the debt repayment occurs every month. And that's not the way uh, uh, things work. And I'm going to make a third video where instead of doing this on a month by month basis, we're going to do it on a monthly switching to semi-annual basis. And these are tricky issues. For me, they're tricky issues, maybe not for you, because I get things wrong. I'm not good at counting and all of that. Now, the first thing let's do is just uh, 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 put get things like the EBITDA. Let's get that from monthly to annual. And the way to do that is always with a sum if. I think there's no debate about that. There is a little debate about how you can do this. Now, once you put a sum if, you click on the whole entire line, and I lock it in with the F4. Okay? And that says the way to read that says sum if it's 2023, 2024, blah, blah, blah. And then you go up here and press the F4 twice, and that just locks on whether we're summing for 2023, 2024, and so forth. And we do the same thing, and just take an entire line. And then Shift Control Q, Shift Control R, and I guess we had 1 month, and then we have more months. And I am sorry if I put the years on the top, and somebody's objecting to me putting the years on the top. Whoops. What did I just do there? I meant to delete it. Okay. The reason I'm saying that is we're going to use the SUMIF function a lot. We've used index and lookup, and the only other one we need is SUMIF. And if you want to kind of make sure things are okay, you can press Shift Control V for Victor, and then you can take that. Let's rename that as a test. Okay, I was going to show how to do a sum if S with a balance sheet versus an income statement, and I'll do that in another video. Okay, so this time, since it's the very next one, we can just put it here. Oops. No, that's the sum. We can just take this one and put it down. And what happens here is the top is all the same, and you can just use the next one, and you can just get the operation monthly. Now, I realized this, I had this mistake in the class as well, I think. Okay, there are 4 things really, in terms of getting a pre-tax IRR. And a pre-tax IRR for me is just such an enormous thing to get. We need revenues, expenses, CapEx, PPA contract or hedging contract or merchant. You need revenues. You need operating expenses, fixed, variable, understanding how the expenses work. And then you need CapEx. And then you also would like working capital changes because revenues are not counted in the right month and all that. Any model in the world takes that. So now let's put our S curve in and remind how to use the lookup. This time I take the construction period and we go to our input S, and I believe there's nothing wrong. Nobody has ever moaned at me. No auditor has yelled at me for putting different things in an input S or something like that. And then I find the construction period, and then we find the S curve. Okay, and then we put that in, and it better be the case, which it isn't, that only is over the pre-COD period. And this illustrates something so important. Those two flags, the pre-COD and the operation, those are the flags you're going to use. Now we have a little test, and this I said, is this equal to 1? Okay, and then I took the total cost. Again, this control square bracket F5 to go back, and I took the total test, and then we multiplied it by, somebody is giving me I hope they're not going to yell at me about that. And then we copy this across. Okay, and this one, maybe let's do Shift Control Q or Shift Control W. Again, you make your own shortcuts. I'll show you that, I promise. And then let's do our little thing. Let's reset all the yellow crap. Okay, and this time I'm going to delete the formatting conditions, and it's going to say I finished my reset, good. And then I'm going to put in a sum column, and it finds that it's that sum column. And up at the top, it looks like I have 9 rows. So let's put those in. And so when I made my outline, I said, I'm going to talk to you about formatting and all that. And I hope that covers it. Okay? You don't have to. Can you imagine how many 3 o'clock in the mornings it would be if we'd have to go and say, okay, go do this and that and that. And if you notice, it's taking a long time. I'm going to take this right now. So, okay, and then so we have our line item, and we could even press Shift Control V for Victor to make sure, and you could even put an equal sign and make sure that is done. And you should be very creative when you make your test. I've said that many, many times. I'm repeating. There's a lot of repetition here if you've seen it, some of the other stuff, but I'm trying to go through each thing. So if I copy this now, whoops, let's do this one. If I copy this to this one, and then I say, okay, let's grab the CopX down here. I just can leave the top of the sum if there and copy it across. So I've got everything's in 1 year, and I can put equal IRR, and we can get everything done. And I would say, that's a good IRR. Project IRR. Because we can finance it, and that's what all project finance is about. And if I want to put a test here, I'd put a test to make sure this thing equals what we did in the monthly operation. And if I take this one, I can put an equal sign and make sure that this monthly operation is the same as we had for the total real, right? So we can put all of our truths, and now if you did your coloring, it would show whatever. This comes from a different sheet, right? Okay, this one, if we go up here, these green ones, that's where it came from a different sheet. And with the lookup, it also came from a different sheet. And I had a frustrating day with trying to improve the efficacy of that the other day, and it didn't work. Now let's get into financing, because that's what we really want to do, because that's what project finance is so wonderful at doing. And I say, okay, if you have somebody did a great PowerPoint slides with betas, terminal values, blah, 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 discount rates, blah, and somebody else who picks a piece of paper out of her back pocket and says, I got somebody to put 80% debt into my project and cover the financing 80%. And by the way, that person doesn't give one crap about our mother company and about our strategy and all that. They just want this project to work. And they invested a lot of money in doing that. That's the financing. That's why financing drives so much in project finance. So the first thing, if this is monthly, we're not going to have to use a sum if. Now, in this one, we're going to have to use a sum if, and it's going to get a little trickier. This time, I'm just going to get our nominal EBITDA, and I'm going to transfer the variables, and those transferred variables would have a green color. Okay, and then is that the right number, by the way? 4621. I could even kind of put, and you can see I put the sum here. Maybe I shouldn't have done that, so we didn't start with a blank screen and all that, and then I'm gonna write this one down, and then I'm gonna put in the capex, but this time the capex are month by month by month, okay? And now we're going to work on some financing. Now I made a separate sheet because I believe it so strongly in separating the financing from the operations. Now let's say, this is something I'm worried about. Let's say we have a construction period of 12 months and we're going to make our model be the base case. So we've got 12 months of construction. And that means our in-service date is 1 January of 2024. Okay? That's what we do then. Now, if we do this, we've got, am I in front? January we're going to have, February, March, April, May, June. Did I get that right? Let me see. We go through January to the end of January, end of February, end of March, end of April, end of May, end of June. And now I did something really bad, and I had to count. Now I said I'm just going to use 6 months. Okay, and maybe there was deserving criticism on this one. Here's what we can do. So if we want to figure out which is our repayment month, okay, and what we can do is take E-date, and this has got to be June. We take E-date and add 6 to it, okay, and we can change the format, but I'm not going to do that, and then I'm going to put month. And when we do that, I get, it was supposed to be June. I was right. It was supposed to be June. And before I get that, let's take this commercial operation date. I meant to use the commercial operation date, and I don't know why this should have been the financial close date. Excuse me. This should have been this one. Okay, oops, I was wrong again. It should have been this one. Okay, we need those dates everywhere. So I should have added 5, not 6. See, that's my counting on my fingers that I'm getting wrong. But at least I'm doing it a little carefully. And then the next one, we better, if we had our commercial operation date, then we've got July, August, September, October, November, December. Let's do that again. We paid it off in June, at the very end of June. July, August, September, October, November, December. And then here's the trick. You put E-date, and you go up to the COD date, and you put 11, not 12. And then maybe it would work with EO month or something. And then you put a month here. And that damn thing, sorry about swearing like that, but that stupid thing, I can't wait to make an email to these people. Not the people in the course were fantastic. The people didn't show up for the Zoom. These people got all that money. They didn't even show up for the Zoom thing. And they didn't take a video like I said. And I'm going to write an email. I'm going to show it to you. Say, screw you. I'm not going to teach for you anymore. And then this time, so this is our dates. And we have to be so careful about that. And you have to count on your fingers. And I probably acknowledge that I went through that a little too fast. Now, once you get that in, okay, and then there are some issues that I'm just working on right now. I'm working on this gigantic monster model. What's the best way to set up, if you have many, many different debt issues, what's the best way to show them and graph them out and set them up? I think those are very big issues. And I'm not joking about that even. Well, whatever. And then, so then I said, okay, let's just say, and I just put this all over the place. Okay, this comes again from the input financing. And I said, okay, let's just, for now, and there were some people who said, oh, you got to do P99, P90, debt to capital, put them all together, compute the minimum and all that. Right, we should do that. That's why I do this thing where we go through it step by step by step. And this time I said, let's not bother with the 360-day thing. I'll do that a little later. Let's take the interest rate, which I put over here, and switch it to monthly. And this tenor is, I did something really bad. This is horrible form, actually, to multiply something you're taking from another sheet and do it. It would have been better maybe to put the annual thing here, and we put the debt tenor, and I should start here. I should have explained this, and maybe I didn't do this in the class. I'm feeling so guilty. Debt is represented by three or four things: the size of the debt, the way we repay the debt, the interest rate on the debt, the way we fund the debt, and some other things like sweeps, swaps, traps, all that, which you could call credit protections. So in terms of style, maybe this should have been times months, okay? And of course, what I did here, which is so exciting, is that in the input C, the first input C, I put a few of these things over here and made sure we have the range names. So you just select these, Shift Control F3 to name the ranges, and it says name them from the right column, Shift Control F3. F3 is all the range name stuff, okay? And then we configure out a payment. Now we're going to use sculpting, and okay, other people said, "Oh, get on with it, get on with it. You can't use sculpting here," but it illustrates the point. So we're going to use PMT, and I just think the PMT is such a crucial kind of thing to work through. And this time I'm going to do it month by month. So I'm taking a monthly interest rate, the number of months, and then I put a minus on the total amount of debt. Okay, we could have arranged it much better. Kenny would be furious at me for this. Okay, and that's our monthly, month by month by month payment. And then hopefully in the input C, just like we've done with the other dates, we say, okay, we start the repayment here, and I've obviously got to fix that. That should be 1 January 24, and then we put and I tell people, here's what I say: I make mistakes on purpose so that you can see how things work, and that's not really true, but what the heck. So on this one, again, we're going to do the same thing where we copy it from this to this, and then we could do all our fancy little gimmicks and have a really nice layout, and that's where we're going to get 2 at the end. And if you're pissed off that you didn't get to type in the interest rates, well, type them in yourself. Okay? And then we put these in, and then we can make a little flag. And again, let's use the AND function. And if we did it really well, we could have copied it, but let's make it greater than or equal to. That's when we're going to start the payment. And again, this next one is going to be a different phase of our life. So we take this one and make it less than this. Okay? And then we press Shift Alt F. I have to remember that. And then we've converted it. And if you want to see how that macro works, you just go into the generic macros. It's all open source. You can see exactly how they all work. And then you've got all of the payment. And it's absolutely crucial no matter what you do to get a payment period. And then maybe I should have made this yellow, but we'll take our payment, which is from the PMT, and multiply it by the repayment period. Okay, and then I'm going to set up a little account balance, and the account balance is going to have a debt repayment. Okay, and it's going to have a debt issue. And the debt issue is going to be this. But in this case, just to illustrate how this works, and this is like sizing debt. It's like sizing debt before we work through all the funding. Okay, the funding, that's the next one of the next exercises. Not the next one, but the second one after that. And that's the amount of debt we put in. And I'm going to say we just pretend it's almost like a bond. And we're going to put this in just the month before. So you could use E-date, and you could take your COD date, and you could put -1 here. Okay? And then you take this number, and then you put an equal sign and make it equal to because everything's, again, the first of the month. Shift function F, Shift Control R. We make sure we have one single thing in the sum. I put balance brought forward, but then I forgot to do it here. I put closing balance. That should be CF, carried forward. And then we take our debt issue, F4, and multiply it by the little flag. Okay, and now the debt repayment that we're going to go through in sculpting over and over and over and over again is this total amount of debt service, which is from the PMT, and you subtract the interest, and that's how you'll get the repayment. And the closing balance, I left everything positive, and that's why these, whoever they were, yelled at my nice man who had to live through the Ukrainian war and then take a stupid test and get this crap. Unbelievable. What a bunch of jerks. I got that example. It's a tollway example somewhere. I've got to find it, put it on my website, because he didn't get the job because he didn't put this as a negative. Can you believe that? And then you press F4 and you multiply that by the opening balance. Okay, I wanted to do something good for Ukraine and the poor guy. And then what we can do is make a sum of the debt issue, and we can make a sum of the debt repayment. They better equal. And another thing you can do is you can use a lookup function, and you can say, let's see what happens at the very end. And let's take that end date and put the period. What happens to this on 1 January 49? What happens to the closing balance? And it better be 0. And it is. And I put a little test here for you. Okay? I tried to design these exercises so you go through the crucial part of these exercises. Now, let's get the equity IRR and the project IRR. The project IRR, for me, is such a crucial thing to compute. I'm going to take the nominal EBITDA minus the CapEx. Okay, and if you've got a project IRR that's really high, you better say, am I ripping off the government? Am I fooling something? Am I a big salesman who's claiming that I'm something special? My solar panels that I bought from China are better than the other person's I bought from China and I can get a really high IRR? Okay. Or I'm tricking people. What am I doing? If it's an IRR below the cost of debt, you better quit. Now, you can compute just the regular old IRR. You don't need an X IRR. And if you do that, you just put equal IRR. Oh, sometimes when you do that, you have to put a comma point 001 or something like that. And then you put, you take this and put 1 plus that number and you raise it to the 12th power and you put minus 1. Or you can take the X IRR and put this here. And then, after we did that, because I wanted to cover some other issues, let's take the closing date. And it gives you a tiny, tiny little different number because the XIRR takes the, basically, I proved it once, you take the discount rate, you make it into a daily discount rate by dividing by 365, not 365.25. They should have really incorporated that leap year. Okay, and then we can get the equity IRR. So this is the total cash flow you make. And then what you do is you add the cash you get from the bank or the bond, you subtract the repayment you pay back to the bank, and you subtract the interest. Now, of course, this doesn't have funding. It's not meant to have funding. It's meant to demonstrate how a project finance model will work. And then we have it. And then we're going to compute the equity IRR on this one. And you can put, again, how about this? I think I can just copy these. I don't have to do that again. Okay, whoops. Oh, I guess I can't. Cannot. Okay, and oh, I'm sure I have to do this one with the dates. Excuse me, I'm trying to go too fast, and maybe that was my other problem with this, and why I got now distracted from my book that I want to finish before I die. Okay, now this is the wrong way. This is the wrong way to do something. And then, so what I wanted to show everybody, because this has a repayment occurring every single month, and it has an interest occurring every single month. Now, you could say, rightfully, I see more and more people doing this with models where they take a whole month by month by month by month, and it makes the size of the spreadsheets bigger. When you measure what really makes spreadsheets bigger, if you really worry about this, you should worry about the speed, not the size. Yeah, you're good. If you just have a bunch of data, doesn't take much. But if you have a whole bunch of formulas with the data, that increases the size. When you format things, when you make graphs, when you use the generic macros, that doesn't take anything. I did all these tests just now on this. And certainly it doesn't increase the size by using the full thing. In fact, if you look at this, I have a little thing here where I said, this is where I tried different lookups. Oh, I must have deleted them. Where did I do them? Or I have so many of these models I'm working on. Okay, I better, all right, I can't find that right now. But I promise you I did all these tests. Okay, and now, so this time we're going to fix this, and we're going to put these in the right months. And then we're going to recompute the IRR, and then we're going to make a little graph. And then I'll be finished with this exercise. So to do this, first, I had to put these. Let's get the month, because we have to figure out if it's June or December. Remember, we're paying it off January. I had to do that with my fingers. And we put month. Okay, and when we put month in, we do that. Okay, and then after we put month, it gets a little painful, but we need in order to start counting correctly, there's going to be a whole lot of counting here. We need the COD month. And the only way I can explain this is by, if you see I have no hair left, but the shift function F. No, shift alternate F. Yes. Okay, I forgot that. Okay, we better shift control V. We just have one. And then we say, this is from our other. These are the months we repay. Now, of course, if I would have, oops, I'm on the operations. Now, if I would have changed this to make it 11 months, then we would have had a different month happening here. And that's exactly what you want. You want it so it's totally flexible. That's the F in fast, okay? Okay, I'm putting it back here because it's going to be easier for me to count on my fingers starting in January. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to use an or. Or, that's not so bad. And we say or this, that's why I put this month here. Or this month equals this one, F4, or this month equals this one, and I'm going to press F4 again. Those are our repayment months. And I'm so happy with my shift control F. Yeah, you're probably getting really irritated with me. But then we have our repayment periods. And I suppose if you did this and looked up here, well, we have, there should be 50 repayment periods. I'm not sure. I predict it might be 49. I'm almost hoping it's going to be 49 or 50. Which one will it be? Whoops. I'm sorry. We have to multiply this instead of by the 1. Let's multiply it by the repayment flag. And that repayment flag was good. See, I made another mistake on purpose. Okay, let's see how many we get then. And we get the right number. Okay. Now, here is a big trick. We're going to count. We're going to sum. We're going to sum 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These ones in here, these ones, if I get there, here's a 1 that goes 0, 0, 0. So if I just add the prior one to this, but I also have to start with that COD. So if I go backwards this plus this one plus this one. Now this is more complicated. And the people who are kind of beginners, I'm sorry about this. This is a painful timing issue. Shift Control R. And now if you do this, we have let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause. This is pissing me. We start with our COD. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we need the one in that one. So I'm going to have to do this again. I'm going to say, let's take the last one, plus we got to go back one, plus we got to go back one here. Let's see if that works. Okay, and then I go. So this is just drives me completely crazy. And I did it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, I've said this before. I like my Napoleon comment to his dresser. Dress me slowly, because I am in a hurry when he got dressed. Okay? I went too fast. Now, this has to be 1. You want this to be 1. So if you take the prior number plus, you don't take this number, you take the prior number. That's the key in this counting. And then, now we got to copy this backwards. Whoops. Let's copy it to the, now, what I just did that right. And then we've got to start counting right at the COD. So you got to go backwards on one of them. And maybe there's a much more logical and way to do this. Or maybe I should have started at the year prior to the COD. I should have said less than the COD. Maybe that's what I meant there with my little trick, because I knew I was going to get this wrong. And now let's just count and make sure that that worked. So we go over to our thing and we start right here at the COD. Okay, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We paid it off right in June where I counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We paid it off in December. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, finally. Now, that I'm just going to try to emphasize why that's such a big deal. Then we use a trick with the SUMIF. We go to the SUMIF and never, hardly ever use the offset, only to show off. You only use the offset when you're showing off. What you do is you click on this entire counter range and then go back to the same range. And then we're gonna sum all the interest, and you use the entire line. And again, it doesn't take any more time. And when you go through this, blah, 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 blah. Okay, 30. That's 1. So let's count. Let's get these first interest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we look at the sum. And oh no, just a minute. Okay. Do I have to pause again? Probably. It would have really helped if I took the right line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I told you there's going to be a lot of counting on the fingers. That's 30.82. That's this number down here. Let's take the next period. And the next period starts here. That's after we've repaid it in June. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's going down just the way it should do, and it's accruing. And we have 30.46. So we have that. Okay, don't worry. Now, all we're going to do is multiply this number times this flag, but I'm going to do it in 2 stages, just so you're absolutely clear. And on the next one, we put equal SUMIF again, and you go up to the counter. This is the famous counter, very famous. And then you look at that, use that exact same counter. So it's going to count and SUMIF when it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Use the entire line, just like I showed you with the other one. And then we take our interest and we multiply that by the flag, which we had here. And we don't use that famous COD problem. It's only after the COD, because you don't pay it off at the COD. And then you do the same thing for the repayment. You take that total and multiply it by this one. And we're going to use those concepts in getting everything right. And then, okay, here it is. You're going to repay it here. Then you're going to repay it here, and you're going to repay it here, and blah, blah, blah. And if we really, I suppose you should press, it's just such a good habit to use this sum. And now let's do this correct. So you make your opening balance equal to your closing balance. Now what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to illustrate how to make a model, and at the same time show you some complexities. Now, if it's the very first time you're doing it, you're probably saying, oh, crap, get me out of this thing. Just like I want to be out of it, maybe. But you don't have to get that if it's the very first time and you're making some kind of simple annual model. Okay, you don't need it. But you can see how it works. And hopefully I don't know what I should say much more about that. Then hopefully you won't be intimidated about it eventually. And then so I put the draws, and then I put the repayment, which is the periodic repayment, and then we have the opening balance plus the draws minus the repayments, and then our interest is not the just multiplying it, although you almost could just do it for the repayments and then take the interest on using a semi-annual rate and multiply it by the opening balance. That would have given you the same. I hope it would have given you the same answer. I should think about that because that's how you. Well, we're going to accrue the interest, and actually, actually, I had that wrong. I think that it's much more correct. Excuse me, to take the interest rate. Excuse me, I really should have done this. And let's just divide it by 2. Okay, you could put days 360 or something like that. And let's just take the opening balance because that debt has been outstanding for the whole time, and multiply it by this rate. We can, and it shouldn't have gradually gone down. The interest stays out there until we have that very last payment. So now, so I didn't really have to do the interest up here, but it was a good exercise. I'm not really apologizing for that. And the interest, of course, we only pay on a interest payment date. And where is this is that's the counter, and then this is this or with the repayment. Okay, and we'll have it outstanding. The full debt is outstanding, and then we repaid that sum, and you can see this interest is a little bit higher than this, and that's correct. And I am really sorry. I get to correct this in my video, and when I did it for the class, I didn't do it right. And no one of those smart people caught me on this, which I'm really lucky about. Now, if we're going to show, let's say we want to show the cash flow and the debt service, we want to do that also. We can't pay when we actually, let me say this, we can't pay and if we did this right, after the debt is repaid, we could do this. But during the period of the debt repayment, we have to accumulate all our cash flow. So we can take our accumulated cash flow and use a sum if again. This is where we go crazy. And this is where we take the counter, and I'm not kind of talking through this very well. And this time we take that sum if, and we're going to accumulate the cash flow for the 6 months, but we can't pay it to our investors. So our real project IRR is affected by this timing a little bit. And we then use our project cash flow up here. And when we do that, and where is the project cash flow? We take the, whoops, I'm sorry, this has got to be the EBITDA. We've got to do this with the EBITDA because on the other hand, we're going to pay off our construction in the right period. So what that does is it says, no, we don't get this payment in the first period. We get it here, and now we have to do the same trick and multiply this by our little flag. So that's the sum if. Whoops. And did I do that right? I didn't. Okay. And then I hope what we're going to show you is that, okay, we don't get any money to put in our pocket until June. That's when we're allowed to pay a dividend. And then we can, let's just cheat. And from that, I'm going to subtract which is not good, but I'm going to subtract the capex from that. So that's kind of our new IRR. Now that made way too much of a difference because I think I didn't include the stuff at the end. Just a minute. I'm gonna pause this again. So I didn't get the stuff at the end, and what's sad for me about this is there's not going to be a great way to graph all this right now. But so we did it semi-annually. When the debt gets repaid, I just put a plus naught of this is a horrible formula, totally illegal. It would be, if I saw this, I'd start screaming, but I'm going to leave it just because I'm lazy. You can see, I did it on purpose maybe. You can see that when you're, blah, 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 when you're, get a word out if you could, please. When you're lazy and when you're in a rush, you're going to make a long formula. When you're doing things correctly and nicely, it's going to be a short formula. Okay, now let's get the equity IRR. So let's get the equity cash flow. It's this cash flow. And then we're going to add the amount we have for our draws, and we're going to subtract the repayment that occurs periodically and the interest that occurs periodically. Now this example, you can see we started with you can see what equity cash flow is, project cash flow. You can see the returns. You can see the debt service. You can see basically how a model is laid out. And that was the idea. If you didn't get all these little intricacies, which are really part of the pain points, I'm sorry. Okay, you don't have to worry about it. And now you can see that the equity IRR this time was 7.16 and this is 7.25. Okay, it doesn't make that much of a difference. True, but it's a real difference and it's important. And there's a big theme that I have in my book, and that is a small difference in IRR is a big deal. It really is. It's kind of like one of those WACC versus terminal value tables you have, or terminal growth TGR, where you put one thing on the side and you see a tiny little discount rate has a really big effect on value. And you think maybe I've done something wrong in your model. You haven't done anything wrong in your model. Okay, and I was going to make a graph of this. Well, let's make a graph anyway. If you're going to make a graph, let's just make a graph post COD. And let's put how about we'll make a graph, which I hate to do. I hate to do this. Let's not show the tail. It's so bad. I hate it. No, I can't. I got to show the tail. Okay, but let's put it if it's the operation date, then take the closing period, otherwise put an NA and open and close the brackets. And that's a wonderful trick, and you better press Shift Control 3 and make sure that that's a date later on. And then at the very end, if you have a bunch of extra things, you can put them there. And let's put our cash flow. You know what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it like this. And for now, we'll fix this. I'm just going to use the wrong one. Sorry about that. I'm going to put our EBITDA, which is going to be something like our CFADS on the one, and then I'm going to put the debt service from this one, because I'm totally cheating, but I just want to show you how that NA function works. Okay, and so if you're just starting, you just say, let's take this one and not put the X scale here. Shift Control, right arrow twice, press F11, and we have kind of and then we have a seasonal pattern, and this didn't work because there's no sculpting, which it's good to show you anyway. And Let's do this a different way. Let's press alternate F1 and get this graph over here. Okay, and that's it. And that's that exercise. Now in the next exercise, I'm going to go ahead and make all of these because I'm going to make a video which goes all the way to the end. So these poor people who were quite right about complaining that there's no video. Can you imagine? You're sitting in a class, you paid all this money for a class, and then you can't get a video to review how that sum if thing works and that little trick where you had to move it around. And those are the painful ones. And I would have to stop a video and say, damn, I can't get this. Okay, then we're going to make it like this, and it's going to be a pain for me. And I'm going to, how do we make a timeline that automatically switches from monthly to semi-annual? How do we make that and make it smooth and not have a really long, big equation for that? So this is part number 2, and I'm going to stop.